Hello, I'm David Harper with the BBC News. EU leaders are meeting in Brussels amid sharp disagreements over migration from across the Mediterranean. The Council President, Donald Tusk, is proposing that asylum decisions be made in centres outside Europe, but some member states are refusing to host any asylum seekers, while others have said the issue is being used for political purposes. Mr Tusk said there was a lot at stake if European member states did not agree to his idea.
The alternative to this solution would be a chaotically advancing closure of borders, as well as growing conflicts among EU member states. Some may think I am too tough in my proposals on migration. But trust me, if we don't agree on them, then you will see some really tough proposals from some really tough guys.
The Maltese authorities have started processing more than 200 migrants who arrived on a rescue ship on Wednesday evening. Many are from Sudan and Eritrea. Malta only allowed the Lifeline vessel to dock after other countries offered to take in some of those on board. James Reynolds reports.
A number of EU states will now begin the process of sharing out these migrants. The Maltese government says that delegations from those countries who volunteered will soon get here in order to carry out their own asylum checks. Malta calls this redistribution a one-off arrangement. But this country, and also nearby Italy, may now seek to formalise the sharing out of newly arrived migrants across the wider European Union.
The French cement firm Lafarge has been charged by magistrates in France with funding terrorists, complicity in crimes against humanity and endangering lives in Syria. The company is accused of paying militant groups in Syria, including the so-called Islamic State, millions of dollars to a factory in the northeast of the country operating between 2012 and 2014. Lafarge says a subsidiary broke internal rules. It will contest some of the charges against it. A parliamentary committee in London examining Britain's role in US rendition and torture programmes after the 9/11 attacks in 2001 says British agents took and tolerated inexcusable actions. It said the UK continued to supply intelligence to allies in cases where British officials knew or suspected the mistreatment of detainees. Sapna Malik represented a Libyan couple who successfully sued the British government over their rendition and subsequent treatment. She says the British intelligence services should have spoken out against what was happening.
There seemed to be this real deference to the US and that they didn't want to cause embarrassment or stop getting intelligence back from them, rather than saying, look, there are clear lines that shouldn't be crossed. Clearly, intelligence sharing is key at this moment, but, we all need to stay within the rule of law.
World News from the BBC. Ethiopia's state broadcaster says Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and the President of Eritrea, Isaias Afwerki, will meet soon. It's a further sign of the rapidly improving relations between the two countries, which fought a border war 2 decades ago and had been enemies since. Earlier this month, Ethiopia said it would comply with a 2002 agreement and cede disputed land to its neighbour. A London-based nurse has become the first British national to be convicted under the Modern Slavery Act for offences committed outside the UK. Josephine Iyamu was found guilty on 5 counts of human trafficking. Here's Miani Jones.
Josephine Iyamu, known by her victims as Madam Sandra, flew 5 women from Nigeria to Germany, where they worked as prostitutes to repay her. One of her victims told the BBC she owed Madam Sandra $44,000 and had to make at least $140 a day to cover her rent. The women said they were scared to leave because they'd taken an oath of loyalty to their trafficker during a traditional ceremony. Jurors also convicted Mrs. Iyamu of perverting the course of justice by arranging for relatives of the victims in Nigeria to be arrested.
Poland and the Baltic states have signed an agreement that will break their electricity dependence on Russia and connect their power grids to the rest of the EU. The deal has been almost 10 years in the making and will require the building of a high-voltage cable under the Baltic to circumvent the Russian enclave at Kaliningrad. The link should be fully operational by 2025. And the final minutes of the World Cup match between Japan and Poland petered out in farcical circumstances as Japan tried to avoid the yellow card that would have eliminated them from the tournament. The game was played at walking pace as Japan, despite losing 1-0, were determined to keep possession and not commit a foul. They succeeded and advanced with Colombia, who beat Senegal to eliminate the last African nation. BBC News.